How did you get started, on this next step of the journey,
For us, the first step was to try to get a clear scope and inventory of everything that we had and match it to their business requirements. This was obviously the first step. So
what was the business ambition behind that? What were the business targets?
I would say was to make ParcelLab a reliable partner in terms of insights regarding operations data.
What were the goals you set as a data leader, for that ambitious journey?
For me, the main goal was to increase usage and to create a solution that is scalable and sustainable over time.
What did you learn on this journey, about making the data model right, for creating scalability of analytics solutions?
That depends on the tool that you use. You really need to understand the tool and not build maybe based on tools that you have worked with and are completely different.
Any final last piece of advice, short advice to data leaders from this journey?
Focus on a simple solution that allows you to solve the most of the problems that can be solved.
To leaders, analysts, every profession in general, listen. Because I feel that's something that people don't really do, because it's hard when you have your ego and you think you know more, but you really need to learn to listen to what people are saying and then build upon that. You build like the use case, the business need, and so on.
Hello, data leaders. Welcome back to the Data Masterclass podcast. Today, we have two fantastic guests that will speak about how to master the art of building a powerful analytics solution. And I'm welcoming here Sofia and Vivi, who are working both at ParcelLab, and they will introduce themselves in a minute. But I just want to say what they have done was really to not only build a solution for their own company, but something that can scale across an entire industry. And I think that's what we're very excited to explore today. Welcome to the Data Masterclass podcast, Sofia and Vivi.
Thanks a lot. So I think that I will start. So first, thanks a lot, Alex, for having us here. This is, I think, the second time that I'm here.
Yeah, welcome back, Viviana.
Yeah, super excited. I've been back with such a topic, and with Sofia, of course. Some people may know me. For the ones who doesn't know me, my name is Viviana Ortiz, short form Vivi. Ex-head of data for Decathlon, currently head of data at ParcelLab, a software as a service company, obviously super embedded into retail, e-commerce, and specifically data. And that's the topic that brings us today here.
Yes, so I will continue. My name is Sofia. I started as a data analyst in Decathlon as well. And then I moved to ParcelLab as a data analyst in charge of all of the analytics that we do there. And I moved forward as a data engineer, supporting the analytics team now.
Great. And so Viviana, you told us actually last time that you're from Ecuador, as I remember, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And actually, so Sofia, where are you from actually originally?
I am from Colombia, so
Ooh, so
advantage
to
that
Latin American.
Yeah.
Great. Well, then this is the Latin American edition. But you're based both out of Germany, is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Düsseldorf, yes. Perfect. So tell us a bit about the company you work for, ParcelLab. What are you guys doing?
Yeah, that would be great. Last time, I think that I already gave a teaser about ParcelLab. We are a software as a service company. Our clients are retailers, are brands. We are a post-purchase experience platform, let's call it like this. We focus on the post-purchase part of the journey in e-commerce, in retail. Our product divides into, let's call it, 3 suites. One is Convert, Engage, and Retain. Convert is related to all during the post-purchase or previous to the purchase in order to create the most out of the conversion and the best customer experience. The second one is related to the communications, the shipment tracking, and the proactively update our customers or the customers of the brands about their deliveries. And the last one is completely related to returns management, returns planning, and so on. And this is what we do, and obviously a big part of it are the enormous amount of data that we collect and the new data points that we create, these touch points with our customers and with their customers as well.
Wonderful. So plenty of data, I guess,
Yes.
to play around with. And, last time you talked about, a bit your analytics journey, Viviana, and you told us how you basically, I remember it very vividly, how you started when you entered. I think you had like one BI person or two that had actually to respond to all the questions from the business, and there was not really a self-service. And I remember that you built up a lot of that self-service capabilities over time, and so maybe and now I think we entered the next step of your journey. You really scaled it, and we want to discuss about how that next step looked like for you. And so let's start off with, how did you get started, on this next step of the journey? We had the first step from really like having one person doing a TOC analysis for everyone. Second step was, a bit more self-service for internal users. And I think now the third step is really something entirely different. So maybe you can talk about that and explain the context.
Yes, of course. As I told you last time, exactly, you remember very well. We started with one person. It was one person who was basically the whole data team, the whole data unit for the company and for our customers. And obviously, as a software as a service company, you have a lot of software engineering manpower. But dedicated to data and to leverage all these valuable insights, this was just one person. And this was obviously, it was needed. This was a natural need to scale and to organically transform into what came later afterwards. I think that the first step was to try to get a clear scope and inventory of everything that we had and match it to their business requirements. This was obviously the first step. So what did the business really need? So what are the brands that we are serving to looking for, and how in the environment of our competence and the data that we collect, how we can support it.
Just to clarify, so really the next step in your journey was to open up analytics also to your customers, basically the brands.
Correct. Let's say if we take what we had at the beginning, was mainly to try to provide the most general or the most basic insights. So given all those data points that we have, all the data that we were collecting, the first step was, okay, let's provide a type of reporting that allows them at least to have a general overview of what was going on. But this gives only a sense, right? And the next step was, how do we escalate that into make a powerful business intelligence tool? How to make that this really is so usable, so friendly, so powerful that brands trust on this tool to make decisions to improve their operations. So that was the next step. And obviously, what is the main platform that we have for this? It was our insights tool, that data visualization, and that insights platform where we create all this data and that we present it to their owners, because at the end the brands are the owners of that data and they need to make the most out of it. So the next step was, okay, how do we escalate right now to fill that gap that we identified on making more decisions, more specific decisions, and better informed decisions.
So what was the business ambition behind that? What were the business targets behind that undertaking?
Yeah, I would say was to make ParcelLab a reliable partner in terms of insights regarding operations data, so e-commerce operations data. And that was the goal. And that means that translates very concrete into a complete refactoring of our analytics module or of insights tool, from everything from the design to the design of the metrics until the construction, the provision, and the way that is presented.
And we're gonna talk about what you learned about that. But so when you started out to refactor these things, what were the goals you set as a data leader, for that ambitious journey? I understand the business goals, but how do you translate that into, okay, this is what I expect from my team now to do?
I think that when you create any data product, feature, or solution, the main goal is how do I make this more usable? I think that that's you want more people to use your tool, to use the feature, to profit out of that. So I believe that the first goal, and that we also quantified later on a KPI or an indicator of the results of that objective, is the usage. So increase the usage, because you realize only in usage, you realize, okay, people really find this valuable. Really, they can access to new insights, they can find new patterns, and they can discover a whole new world about their operations that at a merely view, it seems simple, but actually it's quite intrinsic, quite complex. And for me, the main goal was to increase usage and to create a solution that is scalable and sustainable over time. So there was some kind of the two main goals. Obviously, when you speak, and this we will over this episode of the podcast, we will go through the little details. What does it mean exactly to make something more usable and therefore more adopted by the end users?
And the result was really a solution that works for thousands of different retailers. Is that right? With different interests, with different kind of contexts. So what is where are you now? What have you achieved so far, before we jump into the different parts?
I don't know if Sofia wants to jump in, but for sure you will have the chance to make the points about how we quantify, how we have achieved new indicators on this adoption, right? But I think that we wanted to create this solution for different brands across different industries, as you say, and to make it, although this reality that there's different brands, different size, different type of delivery services, different type of operations, and different type of industry, we want them to offer a solution that is also usable and scalable for them. So those basically that was the goal. And obviously, like I said, we have achieved, and Sofia will go into more details, but we have achieved better loading times, an incredible increase on the usage, on the time that they spend on the tool, and on the decisions that we have also recorded that they take out of the tool.
Sofia, maybe you want to chip in here.
Yes, so just to give some context, so the tool that we have was good for the time where the company was at that time. So we wanted to make a usable tool, something that, for example, logistics managers, user experience, so online category managers would use. And what we wanted to do was, as I was mentioning, that was readable, that would give them, it was a good starting point to take decisions. And to start this journey, we had to understand what were the reasons behind the previous tool. So what did it actually wanted to achieve and maybe was not so possible? And how could we take that so from there and expand it? As we was mentioning, we had to standardize a lot of data, because of course all of the retailers are different. The data they have, it's quite varied, and it's not easy to have a tool that can achieve this, and it's like one size fits all. And basically that was our goal. So to provide as much insights as we could for all of type of retailers that we manage in our company.
So what was difficult about that,
Yeah, of course, when you have a tool in place that everyone is used to see, it's not so easy first for the users to get used to the new tool. You need to make a good transition between what's old and what's new, so that the users don't feel the impact that much. As well, you need to understand what are the needs behind each retailer. So what are they actually looking for in an analytics tool? So we had to really, for example, in when I arrived to the company, we had extensive documentation about ideas that all of our customers had. And then we had to see, okay, what is actually possible to do, because everyone has always many ideas. Doesn't mean that they are always useful. So we had to categorize all of this. And then from that, decide what we would build. So finding, categorizing and understanding the needs of the business was, I would say, the hardest part, because it requires that you really listen and not that you do just because of, because you think you are better than whatever the customers think they need.
I will have to add to that. That Sofia just summarized actually what is the big challenge to start with this type of solutions, because it's not like when you are in one organization, you create an internal tool, you are very clear normally who are your stakeholders, right? You can go to them, talk to them, like literally go to them in your office or make a call and tell them what do you need, what do you want, and for what decisions, what are you working on. I think that we even spoke about this in the last episode that I was here.
I remember very vividly.
It's quite straightforward. The problem with this is what Sofia said. It's like you are dealing with such a variety of stakeholders itself that making something that is one size fits all is extremely challenging, and actually should be more like kind of you can adapt the size to you, not one size fits all. And this is this user-centric approach that we all want to create data or analytics features that are user-centric. This is the most challenging things, I believe, from creating such a solution from our perspective, because of the variety of stakeholders in this case.
And so how many interviews did you do to get that insight?
So with customers, I don't know, maybe like 10. But then because we were with account managers and then customers and then from different industries, we were writing down everything what they were saying. Then we were as well checking the tickets that we had for this tool. So from support, we had to review all of the tickets that everyone is like incoming, like what are the most common problems that the solution had. So for example, I don't know, they wanted to have a new metric for specific, let's say, lead time, or they wanted to be able to see more in detail. So that was one part. And then, as I was mentioning, documentation about ideas.
Yeah, it is, Sofia said, we had, let's say, like a dozen of interviews that were dedicated to work on this topic. But then, therefore, the iterations that came afterwards, that means that going back to those customers or even spreading to many customers, they were like, and over the last 2 years, there have been maybe hundreds of meetings with different customers, including not only collecting the feedback or collecting ideas and suggestions and needs and requirements, but also collecting directly the feedback. And it has been hundreds along the last 2 years.
So makes sense. So you basically used that as a first touch point and went back to get, to understand, are you on the right track? Did you listen right? Did you interpret right what they need?
Yes,
Great.
Because, I just wanted to add, it's not like to fix what it's not broken. If something is working and you want to improve it, you first need to understand what maybe was, like at which point it stopped working, and then you build up on that. So that's what we wanted to capture. It's not like just building something that maybe the old solution had good points, but maybe they were not so good executed. So you just need to think like how you evolve in that terms.
And so I imagine, even from like going through these like handful or dozens of customers and then all these logs of what all the customers want, you come up with a long list of ideas. How did you go about to choose what you want to actually focus on and not to choose? And I guess this was also pretty political, because everyone wanted to discuss that.
First, I would like to add to that the comment of how political this could be. Yes, and for us even more, right? Because we serve to these brands. They are our customers. We want to make them happy at the most. And then therefore imagine being in the situation of, okay, maybe we need to consider more some suggestions from one or other specific customer. That's not the ideal position. So for us, it's really a political decision of how to consider. And then it comes a very detailed process of how we prioritize. It's similar to any company, but besides of that, we also need to take in account the level of operations of the customers where this comment or this feedback or this suggestion come also. So let's say that we include another factor that affects also this prioritization of what do we go first, or actually for what we go at all in general, what do we include in our backlog completely.
So can you give an example? Can you give an example of, let's say, a feature that made it and a feature that didn't make it, and why?
So, of course, there were features that didn't make it because of our tool as well. You need to think of the things that are actually possible, right? Not all tools can, you cannot make a tool to make things that it's not designed for. Yeah. So, for example, we work with Power BI. So, for example, some customers had the idea of creating alerting inside Power BI, but this is not possible because of the way how we work with it in our portal. That feature, for example, didn't make it because of
feasibility.
Feasibility,
simply
exactly.
Feasibility. But let's give can you give an example of something that was feasible, but you decided it was a borderline decision that you didn't, you don't want to build it, or you don't want to prioritize it because of certain reasons?
Well, it's very specific to the business, but one feature that didn't make it yet because of it was not needed at the point in time where we built the solution was, for example, deciding between click and collect orders or not, because the majority of our customers don't really have this feature that they offer click and collect. It's mainly going everything to like a doorstep. So we decided to build something that was useful for most of our customers, not some really like specific. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So how relevant is it for your customers? That was an important consideration.
So the first for this tool, this part, so this iteration, let's say, what we wanted is to increase usage. So the only way that you can increase usage is if many customers will profit from what you are building, right?
Right.
So you need to have like a big group of customers that share some similarities, and then you build the solution that you have.
Yeah, I want to add, obviously, and here we go. We have achieved around 60% of new views, of page views increased. So we have increased in 60% of page views of our tool. So this is to achieve this. Obviously, was not an easy. There were not easy decisions behind it. It was like a very thoroughly prioritization process that allowed us to deliver the best out of it to the most of our customers. And even if we did not tackle it, we had to leave some of the features out because of either feasibility or it was technically feasible, but maybe not valuable for all the users, in the different brands. So then we also try to manage expectations properly so that they can find other ways to extract data that nevertheless can allow them to make decisions that could be even more valuable than the ones that they thought that they could decide based on that specific plot, scorecard metric, or data that they wanted to have originally.
Okay, so you were thinking beyond what we were telling you, beyond the obvious, and trying to think through, like, if you need that, you probably also need something more, and then you tested it with them. And that I guess that led to this iterative design actions that you were talking about. But Sofia, you still owe us a feature that you decided for.
So, for example, something that we didn't have in the previous solution and we have now is that they can do like multiple selections on combinations of carriers, regions, countries, service levels, and analyze all of this data at once. Before it was not possible because, well, again, it depends on the tool that you use. For Power BI, it is not that straightforward to build the tables the way we did. So right now, that's one of the features they use the most, actually, because it's really easy to visualize the data in like one small table, and then you get immediately the insights. So that's something that, made it to what they wanted.
And I guess that was relevant enough for a large amount of your customers.
Of course.
Why it made it.
Yeah. Yes.
So what did they tell you that they want exactly that feature, or did they simply described some need and you'd had to interpret it? How easy was that to extract, what they need from what they said?
Yeah, exactly. That's another step that I think every data analyst struggles with, because usually customers just give you like, I want this to do this, but not really explain you in detail. I mean, and it shouldn't be like that, right? They don't need to tell you how to do your work. And doing like, for example, it needs to be this big and here like this. No, you need to think like, what is the best way to visualize this? So based on a need that a customer has, a data analyst needs to do the job to think how to really visualize the things in a proper manner without being too, hard. Because some things that I see, I guess, as well you in LinkedIn, for example, or reports or so, is that many times it's not that easy to understand, and people don't always have the time to go into detail into reports or dashboards. They really need to do other things in the day. So it's good if you can provide an easy tool that can give you all of the insights that you want at once. So yeah, it's usually, for me, you always need to think like the user and try to understand how first this will be useful and in which way it will be the easiest to understand.
And so how did you approach that user experience design? Did you have a specific designer on board? Did you do it yourself?
No, we in ParcelLab have a designer. So what we did is first, as I was mentioning, we checked the tool. We saw like, okay, the type of graphs that were being used, maybe if they were hard or not, if they were being useful for the customers. And then based on that, of course, I came with the idea of how to present the things, but at the end, a designer, he is the one that knows like the pretty things about colors and everything. And he just provided us with best practices, how to really brand it to ParcelLab, right? Because it really needs to look like part of the ParcelLab environment, and it was a collaborative work.
And so what was important to get the user experience right?
I will jump in for that question, because I find it fascinating, this part. Because even before this whole collaborative work and the designer part and the deciding what is possible with the stack that we have and what is actually, let's say, corporate image that we wanted to impregnate in our project. And besides of that, first we need to match the metrics design and the data model design and everything with the business requirements through what is possible with the stack that we had. And then I would say that this is extremely challenging, because you have there the type of graphics that you can use, that you should use, that are understandable, that maybe do not deliver this at glance overview of the data that you want to present, and you have formatting problems. Then so it's super complex, and it's almost impossible to iterate by every plot or by every metric that you have to iterate, go back to your whole stakeholder pool. It will be impossible. So you have to manage this kind of intuitive and go back to the decisions and to the whole brainstorming of the beginning of the metric construction to know if really this type of visualization could satisfy that decision in a way that saves time for the user. Because that's what we want. Nobody wants to spend half an hour trying to understand a plot for finally being able to make a decision.
So I'm also hearing out that it means that the users didn't tell you, I want exactly that metric. Or maybe they told you, but you still rethought what would actually be helpful for most users.
So in terms of metrics, some yes, but of course they don't know all of the information that we have. So only we know the data that we store and more about the carriers, that it's our, let's say, half core business. So they could tell us some of the, let's say, basic things that they wanted. Some customers were more particular. Some customers really know what they check every week. For example, carrier managers, they did know, but then we extended to what we saw that we have in our data and could be useful for them. So as well, I come from Decathlon, and I used to do as well some analysis for logistics. So I had knowledge about the topic, and that's why this experience helped me to integrate what would be useful for our users. But in terms of, as I mentioned, like customers usually as well are not that specific, that they don't say exactly how it should look or exactly what it should do, but are more have like a need. And usually when you are in this kind of interviews, they are only like talking. And then you need to actively listen, not just be present in the meeting and not say like a word or not listen, but you really need to, for me, it's more like gathering every word that they say and try to compact this in a way that I understand like their need.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to say that actually after this, I've realized also how important this reading or listening between lines, for what Sofia just explained, from the stakeholders. Like this wouldn't have been possible if we, as you say, we would have expected that our stakeholders with that variety that we spoke, with that different type of industries and roles in the brands, that they would have told you exactly how the metrics should be and what exactly it should look like. This would have never been possible. So this capacity for reading between lines, and also here a tip for any data leader, when you recruit a very good data engineer and data analyst, recruit for someone who can interpret business needs and read between lines, and also convert those hidden messages and hidden needs into metrics. That's something that, for example, I admire very much from Sofia and her capacity to read between lines on the needs of the stakeholder, and that was key, definitely key to construct the solution.
And I guess a key thing that you need to serve thousands of users or is always also the data model behind it, because it's so hard to get it right, I guess, because the data can differ also. I know that from my practical experience, it's very hard to have one data model across the company and create some standardization. So what did you learn on this journey, about making the data model right, for creating scalability of analytics solutions?
Yes, so as well, that depends on the tool that you use. You really need to understand the tool and not build maybe based on other tools that you have worked with and are completely different. So when I came and I saw the data model that we had implemented, I saw chaos. I thought, okay, we need to rebuild the whole thing, because it was really complex. It took too much time to load. It didn't give a great user experience because, the queries behind took too much time running. So what we did, was first, you need to decide, okay, now I know the metrics that I need. I know the information that I need. I just build upon this. And if I need to add more metrics, then they come afterwards. Because, for example, in the case of Power BI, it's better if you aggregate the data beforehand and then you plan like a star schema model. And that's what we did. We work with this premise that we create, like, for example, indexes so that we can have dimension tables, and then just aggregate the metrics that are needed for the moment. If you need to add more metrics, you add them in a separate table, but following more or less the same principle of the star schema. So by doing that, we reduced the time, I'm not sure, but around 50%, because before not only the model, but as well the metrics were too complex, and it was not easy for another analyst to come and understand what was going on. So we had to literally, rebuild the whole thing. And my goal was always like, whoever comes after me needs to be able to understand this. So you really need to think in a sustainable way that we don't have all the same knowledge. And that's how, like, if you make the life easier for the others, then your life will be easier because they come with less requests. So that's pretty much how we did it.
Yeah, and talking to the reduction of the loading time, actually it was initially 50%, but right now we are almost around 70% of reduction of the loading time, and this has been basically because of the way that the data model was constructed and the way that the data has been prepared in order to be aggregated in previous stage, so that we guarantee a better performance on the BI tool. This is also an incredible approach for anybody that is trying to construct such a complex model. And also, as Sofia said, in the future, giving the possibility to scale up, move flexible, change, make modifications, but also maybe expand also what you are trying to visualize, not only in terms of the type of data, but also the relationship between the different data that you are considering on your visualization.
And not that it is important, but what was the tech stack actually? Because some listeners like that.
Yes, so our data warehouse is Redshift, and we then develop our models in dbt. So the ETL process is done via dbt. So there we constructed some fake indexes, let's say, so that we could create these dimensions tables that are needed in Power BI. And then we just did a connection with Power BI directly to Redshift, creating views, and so Power BI queries the views. And we created an incremental model so that it doesn't load the whole historical data, because we manage with too much. So, but only like 3 months, and then it works quite well. And then you don't really need to. Until now, we haven't changed that much as of requests that came from the clients. And that was a problem that we had before, that many clients were coming all the time and saying like, this is missing, or can you do more granular, or things like that. Until now, and I hope it continues like this, we haven't had this issue. But yes, that's pretty much the stack.
And how did you load data into the Redshift environment from the transactional systems? So, I guess since you're an e-commerce, like rather new company, you have a lot of homegrown software. Is that? So
we have our production database coming from the backend. They use Mongo, and then we load data via Airflow using S3. And from S3, we create tables that go directly to Redshift. So that's pretty much how we do it.
And so one of the things that you already covered is the metric part. And so maybe give us an insight, how you created the logic and the model for the metrics, since it needed to cover so many different users' needs.
Yes. So the first part was defining actually the star schema model. So, and how granular we need to go into each of our dimension tables. So what we did is that we defined the same granularity for all of our customers. If they didn't have that granularity, then it would be a null value, so it doesn't affect them. They would only see the final aggregation based on what they did have. And then based on that, we created our views, just literally basic sums and counts. Because as well, for example, depends on the tool, as I was mentioning, Power BI doesn't like floats. So you don't pass floats to Power BI. You create all of those metrics afterwards. And if you have a good model that has dimension tables and fact tables and then has a one-to-many relationship, then it's pretty straightforward to manage the model. And then you can build one-line metrics. Because what we used to have is that we had to do like pretty much for every metric a query. So a SQL query we had to build for each metric. And that was too expensive because you don't need to do groupings in that directly in Power BI if you can actually do them from the source. So that's how we built everything. So defining the grouping, defining the granularity of our data, defining the right data types into our database. And in Power BI, we just pass the final table so that it's easier to manage.
Okay. And
I think that other point that I just wanted, maybe Sofia can add to this with better examples, with the specific examples, but the redundancy of the metrics, because that happens to a lot of people.
Yes.
And I'm sure that some of the people who are hearing us, they have faced this problem, because it's super common when you arrive and you try to improve an existing analytic solution that there are a lot of redundancy. And this is quite complex.
There are never redundancies. I've never seen redundancies in analytics.
And then when you see it, you really, after involving yourself so much in the solution, you tend to lose the overview of what it really is redundant, or maybe it was needed. So this dichotomy is quite complex to manage. And Sofia maybe can give better specific examples on these redundancies.
Yes, so it was mainly on the metrics that the user would see. You would see one graph saying this pretty much the same thing as the another graph, but in another color, or in another, like not a pie chart, but maybe a bar chart. And it's like, you can reduce the amount of graphs that you need because, people, as I was mentioning, don't have the time to analyze big dashboards. And that's why maybe I was a bit too extreme. I don't know if other people do it like that, but I did a huge PowerPoint taking all of the pages of the report, highlighting what does this do, why is this like this, and then I went actually to the data analyst before me and asked like, what was your idea behind this graph, or what was your what did you want to communicate, so to understand if it's actually needed or not. And that's how I decided, okay, like this you can do with this, you don't need to, or maybe we merge, and that's how you reduce. So it's always thinking literally, it's not, you don't need to fill a page with graphs. It's not about filling a full page. It's about making it useful. So you just, less is more. So you just decide for, the right things.
It reminds me a bit of Japanese design principles, where you try to remove everything that is not necessary until you come really to the essence. Yeah. And I guess part of what helps you is really the data model under it that is really reusable, because it sounded like everyone was building data pipelines, which we all know that is happening when you have people building stuff over time. You have a lot of data pipelines where it's getting so chaotic that you cannot, when you want to build something on top, you rather start from scratch because you don't know how to do that.
Exactly. Yes.
But if you create that reusability, it's also much easier to then also remove redundancy on all of these layers.
Yeah, exactly. It's as well, helpful. It's like a balance, you don't need to make it so fixed that you cannot really change it for the future. You need to think about other ways how this data that you are building can be useful for any other use case, right? Yes. So that's as well what we tried to do with the data model. So what is behind can be reduced in other dashboards, in extractions, in many things, so that we don't really need to be like building on top, because as well, the more things that you build, the more things that you need to maintain, and the more things that can break. So
so it has to worth it. Has to be worth it.
And changes are so much difficult when it's not lean.
You lose flexibility. Yeah. Exactly. This is I wanted to say that this is the dichotomy and the perfect balance between having a lean process to create analytics and really satisfying all the needs from the diverse stakeholders. And this is this was quite a challenge.
Yeah, I imagine. Well, thank you for sharing some insights on how you built a scalable analytics solution. Now let's go into the part that maybe we don't discuss a lot, which is once you've built it, you need to run the change management and the trainings. How did you approach that? Was that easy? Was that difficult? I mean, imagine having so many external customers that are that are supposed to use that. That's probably even harder than internal stakeholders and users.
Yes.
What did you do?
Yeah, first imagine, because we've been talking about this diversity the whole time right now, and right now I will add another layer of complexity, because even in each brand you have different roles. So you have different roles that take different decisions, although they belong to the same customer for us. So you have a logistics manager on one side, and you will have a customer service manager on the other side, who actually use for completely different purposes the same solution that you're trying to deliver to them. So this is also, and the trainings that you give to them, therefore, might differ, but in our case we couldn't afford to imagine to hundreds of brands, give training so specifically for them, and then give also a training for the different roles that could go to n number of possible positions that we could serve with that solution. So that's also quite particularly, and I think that Sofia solved this, and she can approach it more in detail, but doing this immersion way of training, so this immersive training that it looks more like a tour, like a guided tour through a nice venue, where you tend to try to, let's say, look for the things that you could use the most, and how you can, in a standardized way, access to the different type of visualizations that you have, so that independently of the decisions that you will make, you will follow the same pattern of actions in the tool. So, and then I will leave to Sofia to explore that part.
Yes, so first we did actually a test with our customers before release. So we took a pool of customers that we saw use more or less the tool, so the previous tool, and then we presented this new tool. We let them play with the tool for around 1 month or so that they could come to us with maybe improvement ideas that we could deploy immediately, or if of course not possible, then they went to backlog. And then after this, so we saw that it had a good how is it called? They found it good. So then we continue to marketing strategy, documentation, and so on. And we then provided internal tools about the tool. So to our solution consultants, account managers, so everyone that is in touch with the customer. So first level support. And then it was really, a big jump, because it looked completely different. But the good thing is that was easier to understand compared to the previous one, because
the user experience was simplified, basically, and more intuitive.
Exactly. Yes. So after that, we provided to not all of our customers, as we were saying, but with the time it's more, because some customers just see it and they required a tour, and then we provide a huge extensive tour about the tool. And it has been quite good, the experience, because it allows to keep them engaged if they understand better. So they have the documentation, but if they really want a personalized tour, we can provide it. And that's what we have been doing. Yeah.
I think that also something that I really like from what you did, Sophie, is having some, let's say, helps in the tool, or support to, let's say, like support features in the tool. Like, let's say, this informative button for me is critical. Like when you, even when you fly on one plot and you have no idea what is that, you will immediately know that the I, or the information button, will allow you to have a short description that actually is is carefully written to try to make it super understandable. And there are small things, right? You don't have to implement a super complex copilot or AI assistant in your analytics tool to be sure that everybody can use it. You can just, with simple things like an information button that can be open in the different plots or metrics, this makes an enormous difference.
Great. Wonderful. Maybe a very last question. Did your customers like it?
Yes. So as we was mentioning at the beginning, the usability has increased a lot. Almost 70% of our customers use the tool. And before it was around maybe 40. So that's in terms of like companies, right? Not in terms of page views. And of course, you see the engagement because we receive tickets. So for example, about, maybe explaining one graph or maybe giving the tours to new customers. So you see that people are actually using it. And we receive a lot of good feedback from the account managers that are the ones that have contact with the customers. So yes, the customers until now, and I hope it continues like this, are very happy.
Great. And Viviana, maybe any final last piece of advice, short advice to data leaders from this journey?
Yeah, for sure. What I started at the very beginning for our conversation. So adoption, it shows everything. If your stakeholders are using it over time and continues growing, that means that you have developed something that is really usable, sustainable, readable, and all this beautiful stuff that we like from analytics solution. And besides of that, as Sofia said, keep it simple, but focus on a simple solution that allows you to solve the most of the problems that can be solved. And finally, I would say that constantly challenge your solutions. And this could be as the creators, the generators of analytics features, it can be difficult, right? These are like our babies. Yeah. And then challenging this, but don't be afraid of challenging your solutions every now and then, because there's always something new to be adapted, to be learned, to be scaled up. And this can only be positive.
I want to add something to that, to leaders, analysts, every profession in general. Listen, because I feel that's something that people don't really do, because it's hard when you have your ego and you think you know more, but you really need to learn to listen to what people are saying, and then build upon that. You build like the use case, the business need, and so on.
Perfect. Wow, what wonderful advice, and what a great journey that you shared with us in detail on how to build a scalable analytics solutions for several thousand external retailers, customers. Thank you so much for being with us, Sofia and Viviana. This was great. And looking forward to see you in Berlin on the June 4th to 6th at the Data Masterclass Europe.
Amazing. We'll be there.
Thank you a lot. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Alex.
Thank you.
Boric Data Masterclass, where great data journeys begin.